Welcome to another fun-filled weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hello, haters. It's me. I'll explain why I say that in a second. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
And sorry about me adjusting my monitor. You're going to watch this on the YouTube channel. You can follow me at KeyMcGee, at KeyMcGee on the Twitter, and at Key_McGee on the IG.
You can catch this podcast, Second City Sports, on YouTube first every Monday and Friday right here at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media right here on YouTube. That's every Monday and every Friday. You can catch our podcast, Second City Sports, the audio version, every Tuesday and every Saturday at War on Anchor. Once again, every Tuesday and every Saturday, the audio version podcast at War on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and the iHeartRadio app. We are available on podcast platforms. And make sure you type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. And you can go to our website, weareregalradio.com for more details. There's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And we're on all social media platforms, including right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and right here on YouTube. And thank you in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Lakeena, let's start with baseball. You want the good news or the bad news?
Well, I've always been a bad news first type of person.
Psych. Let's go with some good news for a change. I know some of you folks love the drama, but let's start with some good news. The Northsiders, the men in blue, i.e. the Chicago Cubs, they did something that hasn't been done to a defending world championship team in 68 series. I'm talking about they sweeping away the defending world champion Los Angeles Dodgers. This was the first time that the LA Dodgers were swept in a series in 68 series. The Cubs offense showed up. The final scores from earlier this week, they were rained out on Monday, so they had a doubleheader on Tuesday. The Cubs swept the doubleheader by the scores of 7-1 and 4-3, and they wrapped up the series finale this past Wednesday with a 6-5 victory. Lakeena, I want to sit here and say that the Cubs offense is back. I want to say the pitching is going to catch up with the hitting. I'm going to use my common sense. I'm going to use the left side of my brain, which is the intelligent side of my brain for those of you that are new listeners and viewers. I'm going to use the left side of my brain. I want to see more. That's great that you did it against the defending world championship team who's struggling right now. And believe me, they'll come out of it. But for the Cubs, this series meant more to them. And hopefully it gives them confidence as they start the weekend series against the Pittsburgh Pirates here in Chicago as of this recording. I was encouraged by what I saw, but the middle relief, not that great. But the starting pitching, i.e. Kyle Hendricks, in that first game of the doubleheader this past Tuesday, he was tremendous. So it gives you encouraging signs. The offense picked up as the scores that you just heard. Those are encouraging signs, but I want to see more before I start running down Addison and Waveland Avenues, okay?
Well,
let's keep it in perspective, but it's not time to celebrate just yet.
Right. I mean, let's just be, cautiously optimistic, right, on this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, Kyle Hendricks picks a great gem, a complete game. It's May now, so, this is usually when we get to see the Kyle Hendricks that we know and love. He has 6 strikeouts, only 1 walk, only that 1 run by Ruiz, but, it was sort of a garbage home run. So they were up, Cubs were up 7-0 by then, so it really didn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. But I think this is a Kyle Hendricks we will be seeing. So now that's, he said it takes him a couple of starts, especially early in the season, to get to be what we all thought he should be. So, that's all that. Hopefully that could be just a confidence boost for him and just a start of great things to come for him. Look, Jason Hayward has some big hits. Rizzo has some great hits. Bodie has some timely clutch hitting. So Rizzo, ran out of the ran into the dugout after he hit that walk off. So on Wednesday. So I think
I saw that one. That was tremendous.
That was so funny. We heard the announcement for both the local and national, because remember, Cubs fans were able to actually see it on ESPN here in Chicago. All the announcers were having a fun time with it. It was just hilarious. But look, I think, if you see the defending champions, I don't care who you are, that can only help you with your confidence. And hopefully, this is sort of like, sign of good things to come for the Cubs. Like you said, Sid, the middle relief, you still want to strangle a couple of those middle relief guys. But hopefully, I think, look, the pitching, the starting pitching is meshing. And look, I think, it's not the sneeze that we sweep the defending world champs. I mean, that's not, I know they're struggling, the Dodgers are struggling right now, but look, you got, Clayton Kershaw out of there after the first inning. I mean, you were able to kind of, get out of the jams, and look, some guys, stepped up. Some of the pitchers, once, it looks like Ariel's going to be on the DL for about another week and a half. So I think that's what you want if you're a Cubs fan. You get the Pirates, you should be able to beat the Pirates. Also, too, look at your division. Look at the NL Central. I mean, the Brewers have lost 5 in a row as it's recorded. They were swept by the Phillies. The Cardinals, they've lost a couple in a row too. So there's a long jam. There's only a 4-game difference between the first place and the last place team in the Central. So believe it or not, that division is still there for the taking. So I think if you're a Cubs fan, you gotta be feeling, cautiously encouraged right now.
You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Miss Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown as we talk about the Chicago Cubs in their triumphant sweep of the Los Angeles Dodgers this past week. Lakeena, you mentioned some of the hurdles that this Cubs team will have to go through as far as injuries to their players are concerned. You mentioned Jake Arrieta, who's been their best starting pitcher. He's on the IL for the next, like you said, week and a half or so. And have retro to May 4th. He's on the IL with a rib injury. So, and there's also a couple other guys that's on the IL. So the Cubs are treading water right now. But as I mentioned before, it's nice to see signs of this offense going in the right direction, pointing up. Now, you should be able to beat up on Pittsburgh this weekend. There should be no excuses. You should do no worse than taking 2 out of 3.
Oh, yeah,
you
absolutely.
saw what Pittsburgh did during the first series of the season.
Yeah.
Okay. This time around, you're on fire. You're coming off of a great sweep of the defending world champs. Hopefully this is not a letdown. Hopefully this is not a trap series. Because if it is, we come back here on Tuesday and then the Cubs play with their tails between their legs, there's going to be a whole lot of trouble.
And that's the one thing you want to avoid. So, look, get 2 out of 3, even better sweep. And, look, the Pirates have not been playing very well. Maybe you can take advantage of that and to beat a team that you should beat, and beat a team in a series that you should win the majority, not the very least sweep. So I think that's what Cub fans are hoping for, and hopefully that'll happen.
Yeah, the schedule gets a little bit tougher for the Cubs. As you mentioned, we entering the month of May. Of course, they took care of the Dodgers early this week. They're playing the Pittsburgh Pirates this weekend as we speak. Next week, you have an off day on Monday, and then on this coming Tuesday and Wednesday, you play 2 games at Cleveland with the early evening game on Tuesday and then the early afternoon game on Wednesday. Next weekend, you're at Detroit for 3 games. So the Tigers, they're crap, but you should take care of business there. And then the following Monday, the 17th, you'll host the Washington Nationals for 4 straight games at Wrigley Field in the return of Cal Schwarber. And I wouldn't be surprised if John Lester would get a start in that game, one of those games either. I'll be shocked if he doesn't. Hopefully he's not hurt or manager Davey Martinez decides to not play him, quote unquote. I'm using air quotes for those that are listening. So if you're the Cubs, you have some chances to make up ground here. You're 1 game under 500 as of this recording. So after this weekend, it gets a little bit tougher with Cleveland, but the schedule is in your favor. So there's no excuses to make up some ground. As we talked about here before, the NL Central right now is above average, is slightly above average at best, but everybody's in the same pack, including the Cincinnati Reds. We'll get to them in just a second. But no one's running away with this division, not anytime soon anyway.
Oh no, not at all. And I look, the Cardinals have had their struggles. Like I said, the Brewers, as it's recording, have lost 5 in a row. They got swept by the Phillies, like I said. So look, no one's running away with this division. So I think the Cubs, if you're a Cubs fan, I think you should be feeling very encouraged where you are right now, and hopefully, hopefully that they can they can gain some ground.
Yeah, hopefully the Cubs can gain some ground, as we said before. The schedule's in their favor, and they just have to take advantage. Hopefully all 3 phases of the game for the Cubs will come around: the starting pitching, the offense, and the mental relief. And so things are looking up for the Cubs right now. Hopefully they can take advantage of it. Now on to the sad news from the South Side, Lakeena. Luis Robert La Pantera.
Mm-hmm.
He is out 12-16 weeks with the right hip flexor.
Yep.
I know we talked about it in our last episode, Lakeena. We didn't know how long he was going to be out. Now that we know, it looks like he won't return until probably around the end of July or early August at the latest, after the trade deadline. Him and Eloy Jimenez, who was injured in spring training, should hopefully return around that time, so they'll give some morale to the White Sox. Hopefully they'll be over 500 by then, which I'm confident that they will be. Adam Engel, who was injured with that ankle toward the end of spring training, as of this recording, he's going to have another 2 weeks off before he returns by the end of this month. So the Sox are in dire straits for outfielders right now. Andrew Vaughn, who's starting to hit the ball, he's your starting left fielder for right now. He's actually been okay. That's something I wanted Eloy to do this year, is be okay in the outfield. Of course, we won't get to see that right now because he's currently on the IL. But Lakeena, looking at that short 2-game series against Cincinnati, I was encouraged from what I saw on Tuesday with Dylan Cease. Congrats to him tying a personal career high with 11 strikeouts in 7 innings of shutout ball, part of their 9-0 victory over the Reds. But Wednesday's game, Dallas Keuchel pitched his you-know-what off. But Tony LaRussa, I don't want to go overboard here. I don't want to overreact, but how in the hell that you don't know the rules? Liam Hendricks, who's your closer, who's starting to turn it around a little bit. You know, I had my slight issues with him. But he started to turn it around on the mound, but you didn't know that you're not supposed to leave his ass in there in the 10th inning? What's he doing in there as a base runner? He's not a starting pitcher. This makes no sense. For those of you that are listening on our podcast only, for those of you watching on YouTube, you can read my shirt. I hear forces that they don't like you. This goes to Tony LaRussa, This goes to you, TLR. Now, I'm not going to be one of those idiots that are yelling out via Twitter, oh, he should be fired right now. He should get his walking papers. No. But I will say this. As you get up in age, and this is just life in general, as you get up in age, you're stuck in your ways. I get that. You've seen it all. You've been through it all. You heard it all. I got all that. But the question is, for Tony LaRussa, are you so stubborn that you won't be able to change with the times, or you're just still finding your way of managing this ball club, dealing with injuries, you trying to find your way? Which one is it? To put it in simpler terms, are you stuck on stupid, or are you trying to manage this ball club that obviously you didn't expect to manage now due to injuries this year? Which one is it?
Well, here, look, this is just my sort of synopsis of all this. Look, you're supposed to know the rules. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you've been away the game for so long. I mean, it wasn't as if he was away from the game. He was around with the Angels. So, you know, he's still been there. I'm sure he saw in those cases where, hey, you know, starting the 10th inning, you got to have your position guys on base. You can't have your.
It should have been Jose Abreu on second base, not Hendricks.
Yeah, and it's sort of one of those things where you think, look, no one told him the rule. They didn't practice this in spring training. You're supposed to practice these type of things for these
That's
situations.
what spring training is for.
And it's one of those things where you're like, okay, Ethan Katz, the pitching coach, no one told. He didn't tell him, or any of the other position coaches, they didn't tell him that. No.
That's what having assistant coaches there for.
Get Hendricks out of there. I mean, look. I mean, there's a stubbornness of all this. Look, I'm not there yet either. You know that he should be fired. But again, you know, with everything that's been happening with the injuries, you know, and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and yes, if I think we can honestly say if the White Sox record was a little bit better, I don't think this would be a big problem. People can just laugh about it, haha. You know, hey, mm-hmm. You know, look, just something that we can laugh at. But unfortunately, this is it. You know, it's kind of like. I don't think, you know, he's not going to get fired, you know, especially in midseason, because that would mean Ryan Steph would have to admit that he made a big mistake, which.
And that's not happening, not right now.
No, and look, I know everyone said they want to give Rick Hahn a hug because he's putting this team together. And yes, injuries have been happening, but, you know, with some of the others that has happened, and sometimes the hitting doesn't show up, and now you have injuries with some of your top players. It's just, you know, it's just unfortunate that this is sort of what White Sox, you know, and. You know, the team is going through right now. Could they make it right? Absolutely. But again, you know, this is sort of one of those situations where in the end, though, you may want to kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen here. Now, look, the good news for them is that they do have somewhat of a favorable schedule. You know, they play the Royals this weekend. You know, the Royals just got swept by the Indians, so.
I watched some of that series. Cleveland outplayed them from start to finish.
Yes, they did that whole series. You know, you get Minnesota, you get Casey again for 4 hosting. You know, in a G rate. Then you got Minnesota again, and also you get to play the Yankees, who've been you know heating up. We'll talk about them in a little bit, but you know this is definitely this is sort of a way for the White Sox to kind of like get back into it, get back into the swing of things, sort of get into the groove. You're playing a lot of your top you know, division rivals. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do here because there have been some articles that came out and said that LaRussa's losing the clubhouse. So I think that this could be a hindrance, though, down the line in the season. This probably going to end up being a long season if, you know, the White Sox don't get it together.
And if you lose games, especially within your division, you don't let that negative attitude affect your clubhouse, then that's going to be a problem. I gave LaRussa his props on our last episode when he benched Yerman Mercedes last Sunday in their loss against Cleveland. And, of course, that was the same game that Luis Robert injured himself. And I said that at the time that LaRussa was the perfect manager for this team. You got to set guidelines, and you had to create the culture. It's like this is what you're expected to do from man 1 through man 25. If you don't match that, you're not going to be on this team. And so the rules should apply to everybody. I don't care who you are. If you're late, you're not going to start. And if you don't give out those harsh selections now, then there's going to be a problem. Now, I know, as I asked the question before, is LaRussa stuck in his ways too much? Is going to get in his way too much as far as costing his team a playoff spot? Or is he still trying to find his way now dealing with another injury? You dealing with Eloy Jimenez, you're dealing with Adam Engel. Now you had to deal with Luis Robert. He's not going to return to later on in the season. I know this is not the team that LaRussa was promised to manage at the start of the season, okay? But he's still trying to find his way. I'm still going to give him a slight benefit of the doubt because this is a team that he has to just to manage, okay? But we saw the potential on Tuesday, even though that's a bad Cincinnati team. I know Joey Votto injured his thumb during that series. He's going to be out for a while for the Reds. But the White Sox still have enough depth to be competitive. Now, as of this recording, they're 16-13. This is exactly where they're supposed to be. Maybe give them a couple of games here and there, but this is where they're supposed to be. As we talked about before, guys, the Cleveland Indians, who I did not expect to make the playoffs, but we told you they're going to be competitive. Lakeena just told you, and I watched the majority of this series against Kansas City earlier this week. They outplayed Kansas City. They're going to be around, folks, until further notice. I'm sure they're going to tail off at some point, but right now they're not going to. I know Minnesota's struggling. I know Texas gave them all they can handle up there at Target Field early this week. But Cleveland, they're not a joke, folks. If for the White Sox, it's still good that you're around first place, even though you're a game or two behind. But the White Sox have been put on notice, and no one's going to feel sorry for you because of your injuries. You still got to go out and go play. As Lakeena just told you, reading off their schedule, if you want to be division champs, you want to compete for a playoff spot, you got to go through your division. And it starts this weekend at Kansas City.
we'll see. I'm sure Casey will not be in a very good mood after being swept by the Indians. I'm sure they're going to be out for blood. And look, it's sort of been up and down with the White Sox as they go to in KC. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this series goes, because they're I don't think anybody thought that the Royals would be out there as long as they have, but I'm sure they're going to be putting up a fight. So I think the White Sox better be ready.
Yeah, and you got your three best pitchers going this weekend: Carlos Rodon, Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito. So, especially the Lucas Giolito, he needs to bounce back, and he'll start the game tomorrow if you're listening to us on our podcast. So, yeah, it's time for the Sox to put up or shut up, and this is the month to do it as you play your biggest rivals in your division. Now, before we move on to broader baseball, Lakeena, I also want to give props to Dylan Cease. He went 3 for 3 at the plate on Tuesday to go along with his tying his career high in 11 strikeouts. I'm not saying put him at DH, okay, but it was a nice moment for Mr. Cease. We talked about it a few episodes ago, Lakeena. He struggled coming out to start the season. He's turned it around in his last 2 starts with that 7-inning doubleheader shutout game against Detroit, where he struck out 9. He struck out 11 this past Tuesday against the Cincinnati Reds. 20 strikeouts in his last 2 starts. That's very impressive. Hopefully he can be consistent enough to put his name back into rotation so he won't lose that spot. Because Michael Kopech is coming. It's just a matter of when he gets put in that rotation, whether it's due to injury or performance.
It'll be interesting to see if he can keep it up, though. And I think, look, if you go 3 for 3, you rarely get a chance to hit, playing in the American League. I think you're always, you always feel pretty good. And, and I think CC even said that he kind of surprised himself that he was able to go 3 for 3. So, but I mean, look, it's nice, when that happens. I mean, look, you don't get a chance in AL pitching, you don't get a chance to hit. So, of course, so you get to cross leagues, and then you can be able to hit. So it's. Look, I think it's always good, and I'm sure he's got something that he can brag about the rest of his career. So even if he doesn't end up hitting anymore. All right, Sid. So what impressed you this week in baseball?
I watched every game of the New York Yankees-Houston Astros series. Those fans at the Bronx at the new Yankee Stadium, they were into it from opening pitcher to the last out of last one of those games. Of course, the Yankees failed to sweep. The Astros took the last game on Thursday. But those first 2 games, the Yankees showed up. Their bats showed up. Giancarlo Stanton, he's on the current 12-game hitting streak as of this recording with 5 home runs during that stretch. He hit another one on Thursday to the opposite field. We all know that the troubles that he's had playing in the pinstripe uniform basically due to injuries. But right now, he is one of the main reasons why the Yankees have turned their season around. And also give credit to Aaron Judge as well. He's starting to show up. Garrett Cole, he didn't deserve what happened to him on Thursday. He pitched a well of a game. Even when the game was 3-2 Yankees, after he exited, that bullpen for the Yankees, not so good. They were up to the challenge the first 2 games of that series, but the Thursday's game, not so much.
Yeah, it was just, the Yankees should have swept that series. I'm sure they're going to be kicking themselves for that. But the good news for them is that they're still right there. They're, down 2.5 to the Red Sox. Like I said, that division is still, up for grabs to in the AL East. So, the Rays have won 5 in a row as of this recording. The Blue Jays were able to catch up and win their series. So, I think you can be feeling pretty good if you're a Yankees fan. You're right there. So, you should have swept the Astros. Okay, but look, you play the Nationals, you interleague play. So, hopefully you can, maybe gain some ground there. So, look, I think to compare to where you were a couple of weeks ago, I think Yankees fans should feel very encouraged.
Yeah, and it should be. Like you mentioned, they have a weekend series against the Washington Nationals. I know the Nationals and the Braves were battling out earlier this week. I know the Braves won the last game of their series this past Thursday by the score 3-2. That was the YouTube game of the week from MLB Network, and I did get a chance to watch the entire thing. It's nice to see Mr. Kyle Schwarber doing some big things with the Washington Nationals. So, like I mentioned before, when we talked about the Cubs, he'll be making his Wrigley Field debut in about another week or so in an opposing uniform. But the NL East, that's going to be very competitive, as we told you guys before the start of the season. The Mets took care of business, winning that series in St. Louis. The Phillies, as you mentioned, swept the Brewers earlier this week. So, in the Miami Marlins, they swept the Arizona Diamondbacks. No one expected that. I know no one's paying attention to the Marlins. So that NL East right now, it may not be the sexiest division in baseball, but it's very competitive.
And let's give a shout out. Going back to the Aliens, let's give a shout out to John Means. No relation to our friend Kyle Means.
I knew you was going to say that.
People might get confused. They're cousins. No, not. No relation. He didn't allow it. He had a no hitter, the first no hitter for the Orioles since 1969, and Jim Palmer. Mm-hmm. They threw a combined no-hitter actually in '91. Actually, the Orioles did, but this is their first solo. He didn't allow a hit. It was a walk or hit by a pitch, and the first time that a pitcher has thrown a non-perfect no-hitter with no walks and hit by pitches or errors. The only reason why there's all those technicalities that he had to drop third strike, so that's why. It didn't really count as a true no-hitter. But look, if you look at his story, it's just amazing what everything he's been through, and then look, his wife Caroline, who actually is a former athlete. Her right, she played soccer. She said that look, it's all about perseverance. I'm paraphrasing her tweet, but you can look it up. But perseverance and everything. So the fact that congrats to him, and look, it was a nice moment for him, his family, and for the Orioles.
Yeah, congratulations to Mr. Means as well. As a encouraging feat. And that's something that not too many people get to do. Of course, that's the third no-hitter in Major League Baseball this season. Mm-hmm. Of course, we saw what Carlos Rodon did here in Chicago last month against the Cleveland Indians. He should have had a perfect game, but thank you, Roberto Perez, for being a punk and not moving out the way. But I'll leave that alone. But on this show, we're going to count 4 no-hitters this year. Shout out to Madison Bumgarner. Baseball is not going to give you the official credit for the no-hitter, but we will on this show.
Oh, yes,
yes. So, Madison Bumgarner, as you guys well know, he had a 7-inning no-hitter a couple weeks ago at Atlanta during that doubleheader game. And we don't need to explain anymore. So, on our show, we count as 4 no-hitters. So, congrats to Mad Bum. So,
yes.
So, baseball is looking up right now. And so, before we move on, Lakeena, let's take a look at the series that is coming up this weekend. Of course, the Pirates of the Cubs, as we mentioned earlier. Of course, you had the Chicago White Sox traveling to Kansas City to take on the Royals. Boston will travel to Baltimore to face the Orioles. Mm-hmm. Of course, you have Washington at the Yankees. The Diamondbacks at New York to take on the Mets. The Battle of Ohio, Cincinnati at Cleveland. Of course, Cincinnati will be without Joey Votto. You have the Brewers at the Miami Marlins this weekend. You mentioned the Brewers' struggles. They got swept in Philadelphia earlier this week. The Minnesota Twins will go to Detroit to take on the cheating A.J. Hinch and the Detroit Tigers.
Always fun when those two play each other. So I'm going to guess there will be some fireworks this weekend.
Oh, yes. Speaking of fireworks, potentially, the Philadelphia Phillies will travel to Atlanta to take on the Braves. I believe that those two teams will play on Sunday Night Baseball, I believe, coming up this weekend.
Yes,
all right. And then we have the Seattle Mariners. They'll play the Texas Rangers at Globe Life Field. The Toronto Blue Jays, congratulations to them. They'll start playing their home games in Buffalo, New York on June the 1st. But this weekend, they'll go to Houston to take on the Astros. The Colorado Rockies will play the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals should get right there. And the Belle of Southern California, the LA Dodgers. Pardon my Vince Scully. They'll take on the Angels. They made some news early this week. We'll share that with you in just a second. Tampa Bay will go to Oakland to take on the Athletics. And then the San Diego Padres will play the San Francisco Giants. Lakeena, just to wrap up our segment with baseball, Albert Pujols was released by the Angels earlier this week. I know there are some rumors saying that him and Tony LaRussa, the current White Sox manager, are tight. The White Sox should take a look at him to bring him onto the team. I'll give you 2 words. Hell no. Moving on.
Because I saw like a lot of people were saying that everybody was saying, oh, him and LaRussa are still close. Hey, why not? Bring them on to the White Sox. They can always use more bats. Look, apparently there was a lot of, a lot of clashes between him and Joe Madden and, some of the other, Angels coaches. So that's hence why he was released. But I think also too, it was a money issue too, because he's still in the last year of that monster contract that he signed a few years ago. So it's going to be very interesting to see who decides. Does he go maybe across town and go to the Dodgers? Mm-hmm. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe the Yankees? Maybe I don't know. Mm-hmm. There are rumors that maybe he'll retire maybe at the end of the season. So I'm sure he's going to want to go to a contender. Maybe he goes to San Diego. Maybe he goes to maybe Minnesota. I heard somebody said maybe Minnesota might be a good fit if he wants to stay in the AL. So I'm sure he'll have his picks. Mm-hmm. You don't have to pay him much because the Angels are going to have to fit the bill on that for that last mm-hmm. year of his only have to sign maybe a league minimum, whatever that is. So he'll have his suitors. I have no doubt.
Yeah, it should not be here in Chicago, though. I'm just going to leave it at that. You're listening to the weekend edition, the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown. As we now transition over to Sun Football, Lakeena, as we are broadcasting live from Chicago. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears first, followed by that other quarterback, which we'll mention in a minute. I was listening to 670, The Score here in Chicago, Lakeena, early Friday morning. Mm-hmm. And they played an interview. Shout out to a friend of the show, Layla Rahimi. She co-hosts the midday show, 9 a.m. to noon Central Standard Time. They played an interview that involved Bears head coach Matt Nagy. He was on a sports radio station, I believe in Columbus, Ohio, featuring Bobby Carpenter. I don't know if he still works for ESPN or not, but he works for a sports radio station in Columbus, Ohio. And they were asking him questions about how they drafted Justin Fields. Of course, Justin Fields played at Ohio State for 2 years. Of course, the Bears selected him with their first-round pick last week. And I kind of found it interesting when they asked him how did I'm just paraphrasing here, how did it go over with Andy Dalton? Because Ryan Pace has come out and still defending his decision that Andy Dalton will be their starter. And one of them asked Matt Nagy, how did Andy Dalton take the news of Justin Fields being selected? Of course, he didn't like it. Of course, again, a politically correct answer. He didn't like it. If he was human, if you're human, you'll feel some kind of way too. But, he's ready to go and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I said, it's going to be very interesting. And what did I tell you, Lakeena, the last 2 episodes? If there's going to be a quarterback competition, do you trust your head coach, given what he did last year, forcing Nick Foles down our throats and it went poof in his face before Trubisky got back in there? Do you trust your head coach? Mm-hmm. I got evidence. The answer is no.
Well, it's funny. I just did like some snippets of that interview, and I was a little bit taken aback. Like, oh, okay. What else is he gonna say? Like, hey, I hate the fact that they drafted like one of the top quarterbacks of the draft. Oh my God! But I mean, look, it's gonna be interesting. Look, let's just say training camp and mini camp, however they're gonna do it. I don't think they've set a set off-season schedule again. The NFL hasn't, but it's gonna be very interesting because I think. Look, we're a long ways away, but I know people are going to be saying, well, look, if Fields plays well in preseason or in camp, he should get the starts. But you paid him $10 million, Dalton, I mean. So, you got to think, probably got to give him the start. So, look, like I said, it's going to be very interesting because I think, look, Matt Nagy has his guy now. We all know Trubisky wasn't his guy. You thought maybe Foles would be the guy, but that didn't work. You brought on Dalton, basically, informally promised him that he'll be the starter. Then you draft somebody, now that he'll very likely, if he plays well, people are going to be lobbying for him to get the start. So this is going to be a very interesting. I'm just going to sit back and just watch the show because I just think that, some people are probably going to be putting their feet in their mouths. I'm just going to sit back and just drink my beverage and just go absolutely bananas. It's just going to be it's going to be a lot of fun.
Same here, but it's what we told you, Bears fans, on our last episode. I know you're celebrating Justin Fields as well as you should. You should buy his jersey. Eventually, I will buy my version of Justin Fields' jersey. But keep this in the back of your mind, folks. When training camp starts in July at Hallis Hall, this is going to be one of the questions, one of the concerns is going to pop up. If people tell you otherwise, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Okay, and I'll leave it at that. Now, some other quarterback issues. Let's travel up north to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Aaron Rodgers came out and said early this week the Packers GM is like Jerry Krause. Allegedly, this was said throughout a text chain. Of course, we all know that the news that came out on draft day, reported by Adam Schefter, that the Rodgers wants to split from the Green Bay Packers if he doesn't get a pay raise from what happened last year when he won MVP. Of course, I was listening to 106.7 The Fan in Milwaukee on Thursday, and there was a whole lot of talk about who should get the blame for breaking the news. Was it all orchestrated by Rodgers, or was it orchestrated by Adam Schefter, i.e. ESPN? There's enough blame to go around, Lakeena. Until further notice, call me crazy, but I still think that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers will find some way to work this out, because I don't see the Packers getting fair value for Rodgers. I don't.
It's not. They're not. They're not. I mean, it's not.
I don't see it.
It's not. It's not going to happen. You're probably going to have to give up maybe 2 or 3 first rounders. I'm sure there are going to be some other future picks you're probably going to have to give up to get him. And look, I'm sure he's going to. Rodgers again, same thing. He's going to want to go to contender. So maybe some people said Denver. Some people said maybe if they if they get rid of Jimmy G, maybe the 49ers. He can Trey Lance can learn under him, and who else? I'm trying to think of another team that we need a quarterback. I mean, I heard some people say Minnesota. But I doubt the Packers are going to trade within their division. That's not happening.
They're not going to do that.
That's not going to do that.
They're not going to do that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like there's really nowhere for him to go. So I think they will work it out. I'm just wondering, who's doing all these leaks? Is it who's doing all this snitching? Because I think, one day they call the GM Jerry Krause. I mean, I think most folks, under 30 won't even know who that is unless you watch the last game last summer.
Right.
So it's just I'm finally, look, with me when something actually happens. Like when I hear you say, well, he doesn't want to play for him anymore, or Packers, I'm not coming to training camp, or I don't want to play for the Packers anymore. I mean, look, unless he actually does that, just save it. I mean, some people are not blaming his fiance, actor Shailene Woodley. She was she's kind of the Yoko. They're calling it like the Yoko Ono for the Packers. Like I wouldn't go that far, folks. But unless something actually happens, wake me up when something actually happens instead of we're just hearing all this back and forth. It just turned into a soap opera in Green Bay. I guess they need something to talk about up there until the Bucks start their their playoffs. The NBA starts their playoffs. So I just don't know at this point. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, let's be honest too. ESPN needed something to talk about as well. So I kind of blame them, because let's be honest, even though the draft did very well in terms of viewership, we already knew who the first 3 picks, definitely the first 2 picks were going to be. And no one knew what the Bears were going to do in terms of Justin Fields. No one saw that coming. But is it a coincidence that story broke out 5 hours on NFL Live before the draft coverage? And this is how ironic that Adam Schefter, I don't know if you guys heard the interview he did earlier this week on the Dan Patrick Show. He was trying to explain himself how did that happen. And trust me, Adam, if you listen to that interview very closely, Adam Schefter was careful on how he got his information. He basically sat on it. But all these insiders talk to the same people. You're not talking to anybody different, okay? And let's be honest here. If you're a reporter or an insider or any of those roles, if you bust out your source that you're not supposed to tell who you got your information from, your credibility shot and your career is over. So I find it interesting to see what ESPN did for that draft night coverage. They're not stupid. And Adam Schefter, he's trying to cover his tracks without getting busted. I don't blame him for that aspect, because, like I mentioned just now, his career shot if he really told who he got his information from. He's just not going to do that. And so I just find it that who's blaming who's trying to cover their tracks, and like you said, Lakeena, especially ESPN, they need something to talk about until the NBA playoffs start with less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm over it. I don't
Yeah.
I doubt the they're gonna work it out. I'm sure they're gonna maybe look, they drafted a couple of wide receivers for him, and
Mm-hmm.
let's hope that I'm sure it's all gonna die down. I'm sure. Look, whoever broke the news, if you will, or who snitched or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm over it. Wake me when if something actually happens, which I don't think anything will. Not in
Look
these.
where we. Yeah, look who we talked about early in this offseason, Russell Wilson. Look what happened there. Nothing.
And also Deshaun Watson too. I mean, although some stuff have come up, he's still with his legal issues, but
Mm-hmm.
even still, I mean, that kind of died down. So I think I think the NFL just needs stuff to talk about, especially now with the schedule is going to be coming out next week. So there's going to be, there's going to
Yeah.
be leaks there too. So it's going to be, and we'll talk about it on Friday. But this is going to be. I'm over it. I don't like unless someone actually trades Rodgers, which the Packers won't. If their GM gets fired, which he probably won't be, and also too, he's going to stay right there where he is.
Mm-hmm. I expect that too, but we shall see what happens because we are very early in this off season for the National Football League. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports. I can't talk today for some reason. You're listening to Second City Sports Weekend Edition along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. Lakeena, let's wrap up this first segment by talking some basketball. We'll get to the NBA next segment. But let's wrap up this segment by talking about the Chicago Bulls. Of course, this past Thursday, they defeated the Charlotte Hornets 120-99. Nikolai Vujacic led Chicago with 29 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 dimes. Zach LaVine, if you guys have been living under a rock, has returned to the lineup. He scored 13 points. Kobe White scored 14 points. And Patrick Williams, the rookie out of Florida State, he scored 11 points and grabbed 9 rebounds, including 8 on the defensive end. Lakeena, this is a nice win for the Bulls going into next season, but as far as making that play-in tournament, it's too little too late.
Yeah, it looks like the Wizards, are going to get those last spots. Of course, the Wizards. Of course, Westbrook, we'll get to him after the break. But, yeah, what he's been doing has just been nothing short of incredible. But going back to the Bulls, I mean, balanced scoring. I mean, hopefully this is sort of like a nice sign of things we'll see next year. I mean, P. Will has been playing great. These last couple of games, he had 11 points and 9 rebounds. And in the game against Charlotte on Thursday, of course, Vooch, it was a little bit banged up, but he looked good, 29 points and 14 boards. I mean, look, I think the balance scoring, Kobe White continues to play well. Zach played, 27 minutes and scored 13. He was very productive. Garrett Temple had 12 off the bench. So, like, there was some, it was some nice balance scoring. And I think, look, hopefully this will be a nice sign of what we'll see next season. Some of you actually got what y'all wanted. They're not going to make the play-in game. Okay. There. All you knuckleheads that didn't want them to come in, the tank watch. Yes, I'm talking to you, Matt Peck. Shout out to him, Dave Watson, John Sabine for the Bulls Outcast on Hot Mic. We got another shout out for them during that game. So thank you guys as always. But back to it. I mean, look, Tice had 12, and hopefully we can keep him. Please. I think he would be a great asset for the Bulls. And look, I think if we can see this kind of effort next season, maybe we can get somebody big to come off of free agency, or maybe if we get that top 4 protected pick from Orlando, maybe we can get one of the top guys there, Suggs, Cunningham, guys like that. I mean, look, it's going to be tough for the Bulls to get in. I mean, the chance, I think, was like 7% as of this recording. So they won't make the play-in tournament. But if they can finish strong, look, I know some folks were probably hoping that maybe, they could get a top 4 seed. But I think we saw that they don't have that talent yet. So, and, AK Eversley are not done. So I'm going to trust them. Again, we'll talk about it when, in the next couple of weeks. But I think this is a nice sign for the Bulls, I think.
The two things that pop out to me from the game on Thursday, reading the box score against the victory against the Charlotte Hornets. Denzel Valentine, 2 minutes, 3 points. Lauri Markkanen, hopefully he's playing his last games as a Chicago Bull, 21 minutes off the bench, Nice stats, but 10 points. That's all you need to know.
Well, yeah, hopefully both.
I'm done.
Hopefully both of them will be. I think say that both of them will be gone by the time, by the end of the couple of weeks from now on Sunday after that game against Milwaukee. So I mean, like I said before, I mean, let's just get ready for the off season if you're a Bulls fan and just see what moves it can eventually make.
Yeah, taking a look at the Bulls' schedule as they wrap up the regular season. Of course, as of this recording, the Bulls hosted fans for the first time this season at the United Center facing the Boston Celtics. It was ESPN broadcasted that game nationally. Of course, locally it was broadcasted here on NBC Sports Chicago. Here locally on NBC Sports Chicago, we'll give you our thoughts about the pomp and circumstance surrounding this big event on our next episode for Tuesday. As far as the rest of the schedule for the Chicago Bulls here, they face Detroit tomorrow night at Detroit at 7 o'clock Chicago time. Of course, this upcoming Tuesday, they'll host the Brooklyn Nets in front of fans at the UC. That's at 7 p.m. And then they wrap up the week next Thursday against the Toronto Raptors at 7 p.m. Of course, next Saturday, they're at Brooklyn. And then next Sunday, as Lakeena mentioned, they'll wrap up the season hosting the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm sure there'll be some guys then, but I'm sure the results of that game won't matter. Especially for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, that's good. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be interesting how they finish. I mean, I know some people would rather have them tank, lose all the rest of the games, and just get more ping pong balls. I'm like, okay, that's just you guys are just a little crazy. But yeah, like I said, I mean, if you can finish strong, at least, put up a fight these last few games. I mean, you can kind of show a little bit of fight and a little bit of that, that fight that we've seen, through most of the season. And look, hopefully this is a good sign for things to come.
Yep. Hopefully it will be a sign of good things to come from the men in red. Our segment number 1 is in the books. Segment number 2 is around the corner. We got to get into the rest of the NBA, Lakeena, the best and worst from this past week. We'll preview these key games for this weekend as the regular season winds down. We have some news from the sports media world regarding the NBA and the NHL. And we finally got some good news here in the state of Illinois.
Yay.
And we'll go through that. And yours truly was pumped as we heard and read the news this past Thursday. And also there's some potential good news in New York City, ? We'll get into that and a whole lot more. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. We'll see and hear you on the other side. Welcome back to the weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG and these social media streets, as the kids would say, at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80, SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena _McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, right here on YouTube at War Media. That's WARR Media. New episodes drop every Monday, every Friday, right here on YouTube. Once again, every Monday and Friday, right here for the visual purposes only, right here at War Media on YouTube. That's WARR Media. You catch our podcast version of this program every Tuesday and every Saturday at War or Anchor. Once again, the audio version every Tuesday and every Saturday at War on Anchor, which gets you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and that iHeartRadio app. We're available on all podcast platforms. Make sure you type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor, and to access all of our wonderful shows from your good folks here at War Media. You can go to our website, WEAREREGAL radio.com for more information. And you can follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and right here on YouTube. Thank you in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Lakeena, let's get into the best and worst of the NBA as we continue to talk basketball now on the national level. I will start off. Let's start as we always do. Let's start with Thursday and then go backwards. The two games that were on national television. Lakeena, Dallas looked good as they try to stay out of that play-in tournament. They defeated the Brooklyn Nets by the score of 113 to 109. Kyrie Irving had a game-high 45 points. Luka Doncic led Dallas with 24. The second game, a little bit more controversy.
Yeah.
Even though the Clippers blew out the Lakers 118 to 94, Anthony Davis had a bad shooting game. He injured his ankle in the first quarter, crashing into the scorers table. But then he left the game with back spasms.
Yep.
And he said after the game that he was hopeful to play this weekend as the Lakers are trying to avoid the play-in tournament themselves because they're dealing with a whole lot of injuries right now. LeBron James is going to miss the games this weekend. Hopefully Anthony Davis doesn't. Hopefully he's okay. But if you're the Lakers, as we said before, it's going to be a tough climb to trying to repeat as champions. I think this is a mountain that I don't think they can overcome. But then again, you never know. But looking at it right now, I just don't see it as far as being a championship team.
Well, and I think it's also, and I think they said on the broadcast on Thursday that it could be because they really didn't have an off season. The Lakers did. You know, they won the championship in the bubble, then they had to come right back a month later to start training camp for this upcoming season. So you got to think that maybe that played a little bit of a part. But at the same time, though, that can't be an excuse because there's supposed to be a lot of depth in your roster, and that depth hasn't been playing. You know, yes, Andre Drummond, has done what he's needed to do, but he just got there. But he's supposed to kind of help hold down the fort. But he's doing all he can do so much. Kuzma's been inconsistent. Montrezl Harrell, has had trouble, contributing. Marc Gasol's not contributing very much. So the supporting cast of the Lakers is definitely what's doing this team in. And unfortunately, I think they may be primed for a first round exit or early if they end up doing the play-in. They could lose the play-in. So I don't know. I mean, we got about 2 weeks left in the season, but again, the regular season, I should say. And again, they have the tie break against the Trailblazers for right now. They play on Friday. We'll talk about that game on Monday, but it doesn't look good for the Lakers at this point.
It doesn't. As we said before, Lakeena, who's going to step in and step up with the absence of your superstars? This is Kyle Kuzma's time. This is Dennis Schroeder's time. I know he's currently out due to safety protocols, but all the other players on that roster, and you mentioned Andre Drummond and some of the other guys, Alex Caruso, this is the time to step in and show us what you're made of because come playoff time, those guys are going to be needed now more than ever because your superstars won't be totally healthy once that bell rings for the playoffs.
Well, and I think that's going to be sort of the thing that – and I think that in the end, I think that's going to be the thing, like, can those, the supporting cast of Lakers step up in the playoffs? Because it's definitely safe to say that both AD and LeBron will not be 100%. So you kind of have to, like, okay, let's see what this supporting cast for the Lakers can do. It's an uphill battle, no doubt. But look, we've seen stranger things happen in the NBA playoffs. So we'll see what they can do.
Yes, we'll see what they could do. You mentioned Russell Westbrook, Lakeena, in our last segment. I did watch the majority of this game via my television. The Wizards defeated the Raptors on Thursday, 131 to 129, as they move the Wizards, that is, towards the participating in the play-in tournament. Russell Westbrook, once again, with another triple-double with 13 points, 17 rebounds, and 17 assists. I'll ask this question, Lakeena, to you. I know it's tiresome, but we'll do it on this program. Do you think that Russell Westbrook is a championship player or a selfish player? Given his numbers, he's going to average a triple-double, I believe, for the fourth straight season. He won the MVP with the OKC Thunder back in 2017, becoming the first player since Oscar Robertson to average a triple-double for an entire season.
Also the first NBA player in history to record 50 rebounds and 50 assists over a 3-game span. So, I mean, can you be both? Can you be sort of a supporting player but also be a selfish player? I know some people say that, yes, the stats make him feel selfish, but his team is winning. If he was doing all this to kind of just pad his stats and his team's been losing, then I could probably say, okay, you may have some of those folks who are saying that may have a point, but his team's winning. and some of it's because of him. So they're right now right in the cusp of getting into the play-in game. It could probably very well. I mean, as this recording, they'll be playing Miami. I don't think that would make our buddy Alana Tech Guy very happy as of right now. But it can still change. In the next couple of weeks. They're only a half game behind Indiana, so we'll see what happens there. But look, I think it could be both. I think, look, I said it before, they should have kept that big three together at OKC with him, Durant, and Harden. So I think they could have won a championship. I think they broke that threesome up too early.
That was that era's Orlando Magic.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think it could be both. I mean, look, if you're producing and you're not winning, your team is not winning, then you look selfish. But since, you're producing, but yet your team's winning, hey, you look pretty good. So, look, put a statue over Russell Westbrook. But you should be giving his props for what he's been doing.
Couple other results from this past Thursday's contest. The Pacers, as you mentioned, Lakeena got a big win over the Atlanta Hawks, 133-126. Karis LeVert continues to shine for the Pacers. He scored a game-high 31 points. Trae Young, who's looking better and better for the Hawks under interim head coach Nate McMillan. He scored 30 points and dished out 10 assists. The Golden State Warriors keeping their playoff hopes alive in the West. They got a big win over the OKC Thunder, 118-97. Steph Curry going off again with 34 points and 7 rebounds. Are we going to finally stop this talk of Steph Curry? This is nothing personal from yours truly, but even though he's having a heck of a season, we kind of expected this because the Warriors are obviously not as good as they were a few years ago. But can we stop this talk that he should be a serious consideration for MVP?
Yeah, I just think it's
because his team's record's not that great.
Yeah,
and we all expected it.
Yeah, it's just kind of silly at this point. I mean, look, okay, you give him his props for what he's done. I mean, he has 35, 30-point games, like you said, Sid, in his 12th season. The only players to do that in their 12th season or later, MJ and Kobe. So he's, already, joined pretty exclusive company there. I mean, look, should he get to, so look, since we're throwing out props, of course, props to him for doing what he's doing at 33. But like you said, Sid, they're eighth place. They're in eighth in the playoffs. If they were like in the top six, then you can probably say, okay, maybe he has a chance. He has a chance of perhaps making things interesting for the MVP talk. They're not. So look, let's give him his props for what he's been doing, with Klay Thompson out and such. But let's not do the MVP talk. I mean, I want to get to the MVP talk in a little bit, Sid, because I just think that at this point, I mean, everybody's sort of kind of fighting to see okay, who's the top guy, who's not. It's just crazy.
Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
Yeah. So, but I don't think Steph's kind of in the second tier for me when it comes to MVP. I think. I don't know how you feel, but that's just my 2 cents. That's just sort of my tangent here.
Can we throw some dirt on the Memphis Grizzlies? I like John Moran a lot, but as far as them making the play-in tournament for the second consecutive season, can we throw some dirt on them? They barely beat Minnesota by 4 on Wednesday, but they had a big loss at Detroit. I cannot see this team I cannot see this team recovering from this. Maybe I'm speaking prematurely. I don't think so personally, but can we throw some dirt on them for this season?
Yeah, they'll probably get in the play-in game, but that was a terrible loss by them, and I'm sure they're going to be kicking themselves that they let you let Detroit who's the worst team, one of the worst teams, or at least in the Eastern Conference anyway, beat you. Yeah, you deserve to be in the play-in. So they'll make the play-in, but yeah, as far as being the top 6, they won't get there. But that was just a terrible loss by Memphis, and that's one of those losses where you're going to be kicking yourselves, no doubt.
Speaking of the Western Conference, the Denver Nuggets, they're 44 and 22 as of this recording. They had a big win at home against the Knicks this past Wednesday, 113-97. Nikola Jokic, who should be the front runner for MVP, scored a game high 32 points, grabbed 6 rebounds, dished out 6 assists. Lakeena, I know I'm not going to say critical of the Knicks. I've been realistic of the New York Knicks. Shouts out to head coach Tom Thibodeau. Shout out to our guy Derrick Rose. They're not as good as people think they are, but they're taking advantage of a bad bottom half of the Eastern Conference. They shouldn't apologize for that, but they had a bad loss on Wednesday. I'll still give them props. And if you're Miami or maybe even Milwaukee, if they should slip any further, which I doubt, but if you're Boston or Miami for sure, you don't want to face this Knicks team in the first round of the playoffs.
It's all going to depend on where they get that where they end up playing. They're going to be there, that they're well in the top floor, so I doubt they're going to fall unless they, totally, fall off. I know they lost their last game, but unless they totally fall off, they'll probably get that 4 or 5 seed. They'll play whoever comes out of the play-in. I mean, look, they secured their first winning season. So I think 2010 was the last time they had a winning season. So I mean, look, you give him props, Julius Randle, what he's done, D Rose, I'm just looking at this as sort of like the logic that, look, we've seen this before with Tibbs teams. They have a great first year or two, and then everybody, someone's knee, blows out, or someone's ankle, blows out from all the minutes they've been playing. That's just my thing. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to change from that sense, but I'll see what they can do when the top tier, if they end up playing like the Sixers team or a Nets team at full strength, or a Bucks team. I want to see them play those teams, or if they end up playing like Boston or whoever. But they're just taking advantage of those bottom tier teams. I don't know who the Knicks are at this point.
And speaking of a team that I know they're going to perform poorly in the playoffs very well, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks, but we'll give them their due on this show as far as what they did this week. They won both their home games against Brooklyn on Tuesday in front of a national audience. And then, of course, they beat the Wizards by 1 on Wednesday. I know Giannis is back in the lineup. He's playing well. But as I said before, Milwaukee's toughness will be tested come playoff time.
Oh yeah, look, I know, like everybody, everyone want to say, well, look what Giannis is doing, look what the Bucks are doing. Yeah, okay, that's fine, but look, let's see them do it in the playoffs. I mean, that's sort of like, that's sort of kind of like excuse, so like the tried and true, right? I want to see what this Bucks team can do. I mean, we see them lose against bottom tier, some bottom tier teams. So I think, look, they give them props for what they're doing right now. Being a 3 seed, that's probably what they'll end up being. They could probably be a 2 seed. Get even higher than that. So, but again, let's see them do it in the playoffs. That's sort of like been my thing with the Bucks, and it's been that way, and it's not going to change. So,
we'll change from the best and week that was in the National Basketball Association to previewing this weekend's key games coming up. As far as actually for Saturday, if you listen to us on our podcast, it's today. And so let's run down tonight's schedule in the National Basketball Association, Lakeena. Starting at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, NBA TV, they have a doubleheader. Their first game is the Washington Wizards facing off against the Indiana Pacers. Both teams trying to keep their playoff hopes alive for participating in the tournament.
And if you're the Bulls, you're watching that game very carefully, because there's only like a half a game between both the Wizards and the Pacers at this recording. So if the Pacers lose, the Bulls can somehow sneak in there. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure that, Bulls fans are going to be looking at this. Who want them to make the playoffs? I should add that. We'll be looking at this game very closely.
And then to wrap up the NBA TV doubleheader at 9 o'clock tonight, we'll have the Brooklyn Nets versus the Denver Nuggets. Assuming everybody's healthy for Brooklyn, or at least 2/3 of their superstar roster is healthy, I'm definitely looking forward to this game.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. I mean, you could probably say, could this be a finals preview? It's too early to go that far, but it should be an entertaining game nonetheless on NBA TV, so I'll definitely be checking that out. Memphis and Toronto is another, both teams are fighting to kind of keep themselves alive for their respective play-in games. Also, San Antonio and Portland at 9 o'clock too, so
those sneaky Spurs, man. Woo.
Yeah, and Portland needs this to sort of stay, to get into that top 5, so they don't have to be in the play-in. So, and they'll be coming off that, that game against the Lakers. So we'll win or lose, we'll see how they look.
Let's check out Sunday's action, which is tomorrow for those of you listening on our podcast. ESPN will have a doubleheader starting at high noon with the Miami Heat traveling to Boston to take on the Celtics, followed by you cannot make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. At 2:30, the New York Knicks travel to Los Angeles to face the LA Clippers.
That's it's always interesting when those two play together. I mean, it'll be again, we'll see what happens. Let's see how the Knicks really do. I mean, this is the Clippers, they've been sort of quietly, getting up there. Which, look, if you're like I've been saying, if you're Tyronn Lue, that's what you want. You want to kind of do it very quietly. So let's see how they measure. Let's see how the Knicks measure up against one of the top teams in the West.
Okay, and then on Sunday night, the NBA TV has a doubleheader for you at 6 o'clock Chicago time. It's the New Orleans Pelicans against the Charlotte Hornets from Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. Zion Williamson versus Miles Bridges and Scary Terry Rozier. That should be a fun one. And then at 9 o'clock, it's the Phoenix Suns travel to Los Angeles to take on the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think it's for certain that LeBron James will not be playing. So hopefully this is the last game LeBron James will miss before hopefully being reinserted back into the lineup as the regular season winds down.
Will these two teams meet in the playoffs? I think that's going to be the thing. And look, the Suns still have a lot to play for. They're trying to get that number one seed in the West. So definitely a lot at stake here in that game. And let's go to Monday's matchup. You've got the first game for NBA TV, their doubleheader. You got Washington and Atlanta. Both teams are kind of fighting jockeying for their position in the playoff picture. So that should be a fun one at 6:30.
Yeah, Trae Young versus Russell Westbrook. Who's going to come out on top in terms of scoring?
New Orleans and Memphis, that's going to be a very interesting game too. Memphis trying to keep themselves in that play-in game out west. New Orleans, probably won't make the play-in game, but I'm sure they would love to play spoiler. Milwaukee and San Antonio at 7:30. That should be an interesting one there, down in Texas.
And then at 9 o'clock on NBA TV to wrap up their doubleheader schedule is the Utah Jazz. Hopefully with Donovan Mitchell, they'll travel to Golden State to take on the Warriors.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting, I think, because it's always, like you said, hopefully Mitchell should be back by then. That's sort of like the early report. So, and Utah, they're going to need him. They want to try to clinch that number one seed. And of course, Steph's going to try to keep, the Warriors in that play-in. I'm sure, but that'll be a very interesting matchup for sure.
Yep. Let's wrap it up by give you some of the key games for this coming Tuesday. In the first game of the TNT doubleheader, you'll have the Miami Heat wrapping up their 2-game weekend series at Boston against the Celtics.
That should be a fun one. Then you got LA, the Clippers, started off their road trip against Toronto. That should be a fun one. Of course, Brooklyn and Chicago at 7 o'clock. And
that's going to get ugly.
Yeah, maybe even whoever is playing. Also, too, Philadelphia.
I feel sorry for the fans that had to go to that game.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're in the stands, but if you're cheering for the Bulls, it could get ugly unless Steve Nash decides to set out his whole starting 5.
Philly, Indiana, that's always fun. Indiana trying to stay in that playoff hunt. And Dallas and Memphis, again, both teams are trying to keep their positions intact in the West in the playoff picture.
And at 9 o'clock on TNT, their doubleheader game, their second game of the doubleheader, will feature the New York Knicks facing off against the Los Angeles Lakers from Staples Center. We assume that LeBron James will return to the lineup. Hopefully that's the case because the Lakers' schedule down the stretch is not that pretty as they try to avoid the play-in tournament.
Yeah, it's definitely brutal. So we'll see what they can do. And that is your NBA talk for this weekend edition of Second City Sports. Along with Sydney Brown, I am Lakeena McGee. Now, Sid. Now we've got a lot of sort of like non-sports, to cover these next few minutes. We got some sports media news and some stuff about the crowds. Now, I'll let Sid take this one so he can explain it a lot better than I can.
Let's go with the story about the crowds. Of course, here in the state of Illinois, things starting to open back up slowly. Of course, Governor J.B. Pritzker announced this past Thursday that we as a state of Illinois are moving to the bridge phase, out of stage 4 into this bridge phase for the next 4 weeks or so, which means that there are more capacities in restaurants and in amusement parks can increase a little bit more, around 50 to 60%. But I want to focus in more on our sporting events because you turn to us to listen and us talk about sports. I'm reading here from the official website coronavirus.illinois.gov/bridge phase, and it says here, spectator events ticketed and seated 60% capacity. Of course, entering the bridge phase here in the state of Illinois will take place next Friday, May 14th, and it should last until June 11th, when it should be the target date for the state of Illinois to reopen fully. Of course, the numbers of coronavirus cases will have to go down. It's going down already, especially with our seniors. Many of them have at least one dose of the vaccine. Of course, you can go get your vaccine for free any and everywhere now with these free clinics or your doctor or at these pharmacies. So it's available for everybody to get. I don't believe it's available yet for people under 16 yet. If it is, correct me on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that as far as the vaccine.
Next week, supposed to be available for people under 16. So hopefully,
okay, because I know right now it's people age 16 and older, you can go get your vaccination for the coronavirus.
And that's key. And that's key to get the kids, back in school. So I think I think parents are probably going to be,
You knew this was coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I felt some joy yesterday, Lakeena, as I read out. Let me read it one more time for those of you that are not sure. During the bridge phase of Illinois, which starts next Friday, the 14th of May, for spectator events, ticketed and seated, these stadiums, including Wrigley Field here in Chicago and Comiskey Park. That's right, I said it. I ain't calling it a corporate name. Sox Park can go to 60% capacity. I know the Cubs have been doing this too, but I know the Sox for sure. Every homestand they had to sell the limited amount of tickets, because right now both Sox Park and Wrigley Field are at 20% capacity. And with next week, with the Sox being at home, I know many of those tickets were already sold, and that's when this bridge phase is supposed to begin here in the state of Illinois. I know the White Sox next homestand will start around Memorial Day weekend. I'll pull it up here in just a second. And that's the case, which we're supposed to be entering this bridge phase. More fans should be allowed to attend these games, Lakeena, especially for the north side and the south side. And I've been on both your governor and your mayor about opening things up. And it looks like we finally started to turn the corner. Of course, looking at the schedule for the White Sox for their home portion, of course, Minnesota will come in here this coming Tuesday through Thursday for a 3-game series. Of course, Kansas City is here next weekend, Friday through Sunday. Of course, as I mentioned before, the bridge phase for Illinois is supposed to begin next Friday, as restrictions are supposed to loosen up just a little bit. But the White Sox next homestand is Monday, May 24th, with a 3-game series against the St. Louis Cardinals. Then, of course, a 4-game series against Baltimore, Thursday, May 27th through Sunday, May 30th. If that's the case, that our restrictions are supposed to loosen up, they better honor what they say and give Sox Park and Wrigley Field at least no less than 50% capacity. It says 60, but if you allow between 50 and 60, I'm good, which means that everybody that wants to attend the ball game, including yours truly, is ready to go, and so we can get back to some normalcy.
Well, look, like I said before, I think slow and steady. I think this is sort of the best way to approach this. And I know, look, we've been saying this for months, if not weeks or not months, if I should say that. Look, I know folks are saying that Illinois, especially in Chicago, are being too conservative. They're just taking a slow time. Look, I would rather be Illinois and here in Chicago than be like Texas or Florida, where it's still a cesspool for COVID. Yeah, I said it. So, but I actually like the approach that Governor Pritzker has been doing. And look, it hasn't been perfect. Look, even he admits that it hasn't been perfect, but this has been the best. This is sort of the best approach, and I commend him and the mayor, Mayor Lightfoot, for doing that too. So.
I have our issues more with her, but like I said, I'll say that for another podcast. I'm not saying other issues. Like I said, we're not a political show. We're not going to go there. But in terms of her handling this with the restaurant owners, and all that. But I'm not going to say it's all behind. But like I said, it looks like it's finally started to turn the corner.
Well, and that's a good thing, right? That's what what you want. Look, I know folks are getting restless. I know folks, the weather's getting warmer. People want to go outside and have parties and go to games and stuff like that. But look, I'm willing to wait. Because, look, I'm going to wear my mask because I don't trust some of you. Sorry, but I don't. And look, I've said it before. I mean, look, if people want to go to the games and stuff like that, that's fine. But look, just be safe about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure many of these teams will still have mask requirements, so people still should wear their masks. I know I'll be doing it once I attend these games. So, as we talked about before, it's all about being safe, not just for yourself, but the person next to you. So, like we said before, it's all about safety. It's not like the safety protocols are going to go away anytime soon. It's not, especially now that in capacity it will start to increase. So we had to be mindful of that. Like you said, Lakeena, we don't want to drop the ball, unlike other states. So I just want to go to a damn ball game, because this is the time that folks like us that will do what we do, we like going to live events. It's nothing like it. I know we focus sports on this show, but you want to go to concerts. You want to go to Broadway plays. I know Broadway, we'll get to the rest of New York City in just a minute, but I know Broadway is supposed to open back up in the fall full time, because, they do that stuff indoors. But we want to go to plays. We want to travel, and we want to do other things. Like you said, the weather's getting warmer, so this is all part of our getting back to normal daily lives. And so, like you said, we still have to be cautious, be careful, but I think we can do both. We've been doing it so far. Things haven't opened up yet, but things are starting to open up slowly, so we just have to be responsible, like you said.
And also be patient too. And look, I know some folks are, like I said, I know some folks are getting restless. I know folks are, getting very antsy. They feel like they're like.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, I know you are. But look, I'm willing. I'm willing to wait another month and a half. I mean, I'd rather be safe than sorry. Look, I know folks are, look, after a year or over a year in some cases, I think people feel like they just want to breathe and want to get out. But I think that, look, there's still a lot of folks that you can't trust in some of these instances. So I'm willing to wait the next, another month and a half to say that, hey, but then also too, you've got the in New York, they're going to do in some of these cases, they're going to say that we're going to have a vaccinated section and a non-vaccinated section. The non-vaccinated section have to wear a mask, and the people who are vaccinated don't have to wear masks. So it's just like, you're going to get very confused. I think we're not going to do it here in Chicago. I think I heard, both Governor Pritzker already said that he's not going to mandate that. So
thank goodness.
That's not going to, thankfully, that's not, because I think you're just asking for trouble there, because I think that you have people lie and say that they got vaccinated. I'm sure they're going to ask for doctor's notes and cards. Those things can be fake too at times. So I think
we don't endorse it, but some of y'all, like you said, are going to try it.
Yeah, I'll say some of y'all going to try it. So I don't know how you're going to be able to, how folks are going to be able to verify, especially the security guards. Are you going to see that? Look, you can buy fake ones, I'm sure. So
we do not endorse that.
No, we're not, but
okay.
Some people are, Sid. People are like you.
Yeah.
Want to get back in the, going to, games, going to theater and restaurants and such. Thankfully, in the restaurants and, department stores, shopping, they're still going to have limited, capacity. You still have to wear masks, which is good, because I think, look, you're still going to have people that are not going to get vaccinated, and they got every right. They have their reasons, but. But you know what? I think, look, slow and steady. We're almost there, folks. If we can get more and more folks vaccinated, so we can get to herd immunity and we can get back to normal, or the very normal as we can get.
Yeah, and if everything goes well here in the state of Illinois, as we enter the bridge phase next Friday, May 14th, if everything goes well, which I am cautiously optimistic that it will, then the state of Illinois should reopen fully on June the 11th. So that's the timeline. That's the plan right now. I know Chicago Mayor Miss Lori Lightfoot said that she's trying to have the city open back up fully by the July 4th holiday.
Yeah, which
I hope that happens or sooner.
Yeah, I think that's
because the auto show is, I don't mean to cut you off, but the auto show is supposed to be at the McCormick Place in the middle of July. Of course, you go by the sports calendar. I think the dates are around the All-Star break, like the 15th, the 16th, something around in there. Of course, I don't know, some reforming of Taste of Chicago is supposed to be happening this year. I know there's some concerts, including that Wrigley Field, is going to happen starting, I believe, next month into July. And so you having some events coming back steady and slowly. So as I said before, we have to be careful. You have to take care of yourself, and we have to get back to normal. We can do two things at once, folks. Just be responsible. Do not be reckless.
I just put a capper on this. I mean, like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see. I know that I think I saw the NFL say that they're going to give away 50 free Super Bowl tickets to people who are vaccinated for next year's Super Bowl over in Los Angeles. I think like some other the concerts you're talking about. I think some of them they're going to require, I guess, for folks to be vaccinated by the time those concerts start, because I guess they're only limiting so many people. I think they're only going to be at about 50-60% capacity, and I think in a lot of those festivals and the Taste of Chicago, I think they're only limiting to those folks too. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how folks are going to do this, because I know it's going to be a mess.
Like I said before, as I read out the schedule to you guys, as far involving the Chicago White Sox, of course, their next homestand, which is May 24th. Hopefully, the capacity will be increased between 50 and 60% by then. I just want to go to a ball game, enjoy myself, like many of you Cubs fans as well that want to attend the ball games up there on the north side as well. Just increase capacity during this bridge race, like you said it was, like I just read out to you all. And we'll protect ourselves as far as being responsible, wearing your mask and things along that line. Just give us a fair opportunity to go to these ball games, and we'll all be good.
Yes, absolutely. This is Second City Sports with Cindy Brown. I'm Lakeena McGee. We got a few minutes left, Sid, so let's go to some sports media news. It's sort of like the thing in part of the podcast that we do is about this time. We'll start in the NBA. Some interesting things came out of Andrew Marchand does a great job with sports media. There are a lot of great sports media reports people out there, but he's one of them. He works for the New York Post. He came up with an article a couple of days ago that Chris Webber may not be asked to come back for their NBA on TNT coverage, and also Marv Albert might be retiring for the NBA on TNT coverage. So, Sid, which one do you want to comment on first?
Chris Webber. I know Tony Gill, our guy of NBC Sports Chicago, he hates Chris Webber as a broadcaster. We'll bring him on here at some point and let him give his answer, reason why himself. But he's okay as a broadcaster. He's not the worst that I've heard. So I've heard much worse from quote-unquote more experienced people. I'll end it at that. But I read that article too that he wasn't happy that he wasn't included in this year's March Madness coverage from CBS and Turner. So that might be a reason why he might not get asked back either. But we see this at times, Lakeena, in our industry. Change comes when you least expect it. Management has their own ideas. Of course, other people have their own ideas, and sometimes these things happen. Of course, now, as you mentioned, Marv Albert may be retiring after this year's Eastern Conference Finals, which Turner is the exclusive home to this year. So, if that happens, could Kevin Harlan move into that number one spot at TNT? Because he's currently the number two guy. Could Ian Eagle, who's also the lead TV announcer for the Brooklyn Nets, he does a great job with Sarah Kustok, could he be the number one guy at TNT? So, Turner has some options moving forward.
And Brian Anderson could also be another option, too. So they have a lot of depth.
Yeah, who's the announcer for the Milwaukee Brewers on the TV side.
Yes, for baseball. So, they have a lot of options over there at Turner. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do there. Now, let's go to the leagues for a second, and let's do that hockey, as Chance the Rapper would say, this time on the TV front. Turner has announced who's going to be their league announcing team for their NHL coverage. It is Kenny Albert and one of our favorites, Eddie Olczyk. Well, of course, Kenny Albert's another one of my favorites, but Turner announced earlier this week that Kenny Albert and Eddie Olczyk will be their lead announcing team for their NHL coverage starting this fall.
Yeah, and they'll close out the coverage for NBC as NBC says goodbye to the NHL this coming summer after the Stanley Cup Finals. So it was a no-brainer here for Turner. I just want to see their second crew and possibly their third crew, because they'll be airing more games starting in the fall in conjunction with ESPN. So this was a no-brainer here. Congratulations to those two. They both deserve it. They actually sound great together. And Turner will be fine. Now, over on the flip side on ESPN, as I said all along, John Buccigross, who did the hockey coverage for ESPN many moons ago, And he's been itching to talk some hockey back on that network outside of SportsCenter. So, as I said before, their number one crew should be John Buccigross and Kevin Weeks if they can get him from the NHL network. And I know I also read an article too. They're talking to Wayne Gretzky to see if they could bring him over to ESPN for their coverage at some capacity. Also, I know he's still the voice of Monday Night Football, and he did some college football the last couple years. But Steve Levy, he needs to get back on hockey as well, because he did it the first time around before ESPN cut ties with the NHL back in 2004.
Also, John Davidson, who's no longer the GM over with the Rangers, what a mess they've been in. they've had this week. We won't.
And let me before you continue, Lakeena, I don't want to spend too much time on this. Tom Wilson is an idiot. The Washington Capitals. You talking about that fight? He slammed the New York Rangers player. I forgot his name. Head first on the ice. That is just stupid.
And remember.
And then they had to fight the next game.
Like
8 seconds.
Like the 5 or 6 fights going on. You love it when those things really happen in the NHL, but you appreciate it so much. I mean,
it looks worse than the Hanson Brothers movie. What's that movie? I know people are going to kill me for it.
Yeah, come on now.
Back in the 70s. I forget. Blame my mind, not my heart. But it reminds me of the Hanson Brothers, but much worse. Everybody involved is an idiot.
I mean, that whole saga is just crazy. We don't have time to get to it. We'll probably get to it in a later podcast. But that was just hilarious to me that when I saw that, because even my mom was mentioning it to me. Like, did you see that fight against the hockey fight? I'm like, yes, Mom, I did. That's how crazy it was. I even saw it on GMA. So it's just so crazy how crazy it was. But yeah, John Davis said they should.
And you wonder why hockey doesn't get the coverage that it deserves because.
Yeah.
Like you said, we'll say that for another podcast.
Yeah.
Continue on John Davison, please.
But John Davison did some great work, both in TSN and also on ESPN. So I think he'd be great. I know they've put some feelers out to him. Also, DeRay Ferraro to come back to ESPN. Kevin Weeks, too. So I think he's done some work for ESPN, doing with their college hockey coverage their last couple of years. So I think he'd be great. So look, ESPN will have their picks too. So. There's going to be, like I said, hopefully they'll get Butchie there. Hopefully they can get Steve Levy. Some people have said maybe bring back Gary Thorne. I don't know if he would want to do that anymore. So, that I think that
if he wants to do it, fine. But I don't know if he wants to at this stage of his life.
Nah. I think he's happy with his limited scheduling. I know he retired from the Orioles last year, and I think he's enjoying his retirement. But he might do it for maybe 1 year and maybe pass off to somebody. Maybe who knows, but. Yeah, so look, it's going to be like I said, both ESPN and Turner will have a lot of choices. Of course, the guys from, they're going to be leaving NBC since they're leaving their coverage. They'll definitely, I'm sure they'll probably get first crack at it, both ESPN and Turner. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with their NHL coverage. I'm sure they're going to want, both networks are going to want to do it right.
Yeah, and I trust they'll both do it right. They have time here to get the rest of their announcing team corrected and see how they want to present it. Like I said, it's going to be more interesting to see how ESPN does this now since they're back in the fold for the first time in 16, 17 years. So all eyes is going to be on them. I know people want to say, pressure's going to be on Turner because they never did hockey before. I think eventually they'll be fine. But more pressure is going to be on ESPN because people like yours truly have been waiting for them to get back on that network for years. Because let's be honest here, this is the time when hockey was coming up in the late 90s into early 2000s. We talked about it before, following the dynasty of the Bulls. It was the Lakers that was running the league at that time. And during their late sports centers at 10, 11 o'clock our time, they had the Lakers highlight or whoever played on the East Coast at the time. It was Philadelphia and Iverson. But they led SportsCenter with their hockey, especially during the playoffs. They said more in the NBA later, i.e. the Lakers. And so when ESPN had the NHL on their network, they gave more of a damn about them at that time. These last few years, unless they had Barry Melrose on there, they don't care about hockey until the playoffs.
Yeah. So,
but now that's going to change because the game's going to be airing on that network.
Yeah, that's going to be the wild card here too. So. Going to be very interesting with what they do there. Now, the World Network is not going to be doing hockey anymore after this season. NBC Sports, now the future of their RSNs, NBC Sports Chicago included, is now in question. The Wall Street Journal reported a couple of days ago that their first strategy perhaps maybe rebrand streaming. specifically in their streaming app, the Peacock app. And Sid, you and I talked about this right before we started recording our next segment. This is not going to work, especially here in Chicago, where you've got this the only place where you can find the Bulls, the Blackhawks, and the White Sox. You're not gonna get folks here to go to Peacock. You're not, especially assuming that you're gonna be in the Peacock Plus, which means you have to pay for it, unlike in the free version. You're not gonna get folks to sign up. You better don't even think about that. Don't do it.
This is worse than Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the Bulls and White Sox. The White Sox going exclusively to cable. They bought the White Sox in the early '80s, so you don't want history repeating itself. As I said before, especially now living in a different age, especially in the digital social media age, people want and need options. Let me repeat that again. People want and need options. I understand streaming is coming a part of our lives now. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. If you're going to sell me on the fact that streaming is the only way to go, I'm not buying it. Should it be a part of the way that we consume our programming, including sports? Yes. But you think that's the only avenue? Like you said, I'm not buying it. No pun intended. It's nothing like live sports, and I'm watching a live Chicago Cubs game as we record. And so, if I had to go find other avenues to stream it exclusively, if it's not on television, there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, it's going to be a big problem, especially here in Chicago. That's not going to go over well. I'm sure some of the other cities,
exactly,
like Philadelphia and New England.
Yeah, I also read that article. They was going to try it in Philadelphia, but of course, because of the pandemic and other issues, they didn't do it. So maybe those are a blessing in disguise.
Well, and let's remember too, they all of them have had their issues and various. We know some folks that unfortunately were let go on the Chicago side. But again, this is not the way to do it now. The other option they said is to perhaps maybe sell them and consolidate them. But, who are you going to get? I mean, ESPN had to sell the Fox RSNs and, yes, with the pandemic, with everything going on. But since things are starting to get back up, I mean, they want to, AT&T wants to sell off those RSNs. So I really don't know what else that they can do. I know that streaming is probably going to be the way to go for them, but I think unfortunately that's not going to go over with a lot of sports fans in some of the bigger cities, especially here in Chicago. It just won't. Yeah,
and look at what Fox Sports, their regional networks, they with the whole situation with Sinclair, selling those off. Now they're rebranded as Bally Sports. So things are getting interesting the way we consume our sports and rebranding, especially with the pandemic. That we're not out of it yet, but we're slowly coming out of it. But the landscape in media is always changing. And companies are trying to keep up with the times to see what they could do with little to nothing.
Like I said, we'll definitely keep you guys updated because this is going to be a story that's going to cause a lot of anarchy if they do go with the streaming arc. I mean, with NBC Sports Network, being going to be out by the end of the year, a lot of their stuff's probably going to end up being on the Peacock app, which I think that's just silly. But again, that's another episode. That's a thing for another episode, another tangent. But I'm all talked out because this is just absurd. What the reports are. I hope they rethink this because this will not go over well in some of those cities.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, especially in cities like Philadelphia and Chicago, which those two cities, I'll speak for Chicago because we're broadcasting when we live here. No matter if they're good or bad, we are passionate about our sports. If you take a traditional option away, it's not going to go over well. You saw what happened to the White Sox. They almost lost a generation of fans, as I said before, when Jerry Reinsdorf bought the team in the early 80s, and he put them on cable. It's now NBC Sports Chicago now, but back then he put them on Sports Vision after taking them off of Channel 44, which is now Telemundo now, but back then it was an English-speaking station. Yes. And you ask people that are age and older, and that didn't go over well.
And look at what Rocky Wirtz did after his dad passed away. I mean, his dad was very stubborn about putting those Blackhawk games, the home Blackhawk games, I should say, on television. Bill passed.
Now you have a whole generation of fans that watch the Hawks through those Cup years on television consistently, and now you have a whole new fan base.
Look, imagine had they had not done that, had he had not put those games on television. I mean, you would have lost a lot. Look, you would have lost a lot of those guys, and lost a lot of those fans, that we would have missed out on seeing all those cups. So
yeah,
it's look, I hope they don't do that. I hope they rethink this. A lot could probably still happen between now and the end of the year. So hopefully, hopefully they'll rethink it.
Yeah, like you said, it's just only the beginning, but hopefully, better judgment and better decisions will be made in this situation here. Lakeena, close us out, please.
With that said, we can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly on these sports social media streets, as the kids would say, at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. That's both on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, right here on YouTube at War Media. New episodes for the visual will drop every Monday and Friday. Once again, new episodes for the visual every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can catch our podcast versions every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor. Once again, every Tuesday and every Saturday for the podcast/audio version at War on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and that iHeartRadio app. We're available on all podcast platforms. Make sure you type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com, and we're on all social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and right here on YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes. For Lakeena, I am Sid. You've been listening to Second City Sports Weekend Edition. Have a great weekend. Looks like things are opening up, especially here in the state of Illinois. We are happy about that as the bridge phase will begin next Friday, May 14th. If all goes well, yours truly, along with everybody else, can attend these ball games and get back to some sort of normalcy, and we can enjoy our sports the way we like it. Once again, for Lakeena, I am Sid. You're listening to Second City Sports. Until next time, holla!
Stay safe, everybody.